guys, if you don't know me, my name is Trent Wright, and I'm a senior here at Forsyth Central High School. I've been a part of the engineering pathway, the STEM program, for 4 years now, and I'd like to share with you about what my internship is. So now, my internship was at a place called Fagan Engineering Services, or FES. And this place is an engineering place that does the designing of plumbing, electrical, and mechanical systems for buildings. So basically, a company comes to them and say, we want to turn this building that's already existing into a office or into a restaurant or something like that. And FES says, okay, and they take that and they outfit it with as many bathrooms as it needs, as many lights as it needs, and things like that. So throughout this process, I needed a research guiding question. I needed something that I could answer, so I learned something at the end. And so my guiding question was, how has design software for mechanical engineers evolved, and what will it look like in the future? So I chose this question because it was something that I'm interested in. I like designing parts, and I've done a lot of experience with 3D modeling, and I wanted to know, how has it evolved and how can it change in the future possibly? So in order to find the answer to this question, I had to do some research. So research came in the forms of a couple different things. I found some articles online and read through those. And then one of my most informative things was an interview. So first, I want to talk about the interview. So I had to interview somebody that was in the field of engineering. And so I chose my mentor, Mr. Fagan. So Mr. Fagan is the owner of the business, and he's been in the business for a good long while now. So he knows all the ins and outs of how CAD has evolved and what it might look like in the future. So I asked him 10 questions and got his answer on it. The first one was, what features of AutoCAD have advanced since you started using it? He told me it's become more streamlined and easier to use. This makes sense. Just like with any other computer program, as people start using it more, it starts to get more advanced. The second question I asked was, how has CAD aided you in designing and modeling buildings? So I wanted to know how it's helped them and how it's been able to shape their business. And he said the scaling of individual parts relatively to each other is exact, and everything can be modeled to full size. So this was something that I hadn't really thought about before, but when you're drawing on paper, you have to use a scale. So your building can't be as large as it is on real life because your paper isn't big enough. So you have to model it to, say, 1/4 scale. Now, when you're doing a CAD program, you can zoom in and zoom out and draw all the lines to full size. That way everything is perfectly sized relative to each other. And everything can be modeled to full size. Third, what are some advantages of CAD over hand drawing? So I wanted to know, why would they switch from hand drawing to CAD? And he said it's faster and more accurate to use. It's also easier to do repetitive tasks with copy and paste. So just like with any other computer program, for the most part, they make things easier. They make them faster and they're more accurate because you don't have to worry about using a ruler to draw a straight line and make sure that line is perfectly perpendicular and parallel. You can just draw a line and know that it's perfect relative to all the other lines. And then copy and paste. If you're drawing 100 little squares, it's much easier to copy them and then paste them individually rather than have to tediously draw them each time. The fourth question, are there any parts of hand drafting that are better than using CAD software? Anybody that's worked with software knows software is a powerful tool, but there are some parts of doing it the old-fashioned way that are just better. And he said, hand drawing is better and faster for doing quick sketches. Hand drawing also helps stop many of the small errors that could be overlooked. So it's better when you're doing small tasks and quick sketches. And when you're erasing, if you accidentally group a line in your CAD software, if you accidentally group a line and then try to delete a bunch of things, it's easy to get that extra line in there if you don't mean to, and it can mess things up. When you're erasing on paper, it's relatively difficult to accidentally group in a line with that. So there are certainly parts of hand drafting that are better than CAD. The fifth question I asked are, what are some features you would like to see in a future update of AutoCAD? So they use AutoCAD there, and I wanted to know, how would they like to see it advance? And he said the ability to better import and edit documents that are not specifically AutoCAD drawings. So this is one of the shortcomings, is it may be because they just haven't gotten to that part yet, or it may be because certain businesses, they don't want to match other businesses with them. But you can't really import drawings that aren't AutoCAD drawings. So the ability to import other drawings that aren't specifically AutoCAD. And then he also said it would be cool to see CAD models with VR headsets to get a better picture. So VR headsets are coming on leaps and bounds, and they're getting much cheaper and much more powerful to use. So we can expect that in the next few years we will be able to see a CAD model in 3D in VR, which would be really cool to see. The sixth question I asked are, what are some advantages of using a 2D CAD software over a 3D CAD software? So here at school, I've learned how to use 3D modeling software, which is SolidWorks, and they use a 2D CAD software called AutoCAD. So I wanted to know, why would they use AutoCAD rather than SolidWorks? Because SolidWorks can give a good degree of precision. But he told me that it's easier and faster to use a 2D sketch. Commonly, an engineer designs systems that do not need a 3D modeling software. So they typically do things in the floor, in the ceiling, or down through the walls. And those things in the walls are pipes that run vertically. So it just doesn't really make sense to model each part individually and put it into a 3D CAD software. So it adds a lot of complexity, it adds a lot of precision, but it also adds a lot of time and not enough reward to make it worthwhile. Number 7, how has CAD aided you in sharing and informing others about your designs? So he told me that it's made the process much faster and easier to use. You can export the product as a PDF and just email it off to the person. You don't have to worry about scanning documents, faxing things, and things like that. You can literally hit a button and then email it to the person. Number 8, have you ever been asked to do a job that was not possible without CAD? So I wanted to know, if CAD is great, are there any jobs that are impossible to do by hand? And he said, not really. They have definitely been jobs that were not feasible or would not be profitable doing it by hand. And this makes sense. Almost anything is possible to do with a pen and paper. It just may not be feasible. And then I wanted to know, have you ever been asked to do a job that was not possible with CAD? So I wanted to know if there were any jobs that he couldn't do right now because of the limitations given to him by CAD. And he said there were definitely jobs that would not have been feasible because they were super detailed, but almost all jobs are feasible. So they may not be feasible, but they are possible. And then the last question I asked, what is your favorite feature of the version of AutoCAD you're using today? And he told me the purge feature. It allows the user to clear out unused elements of a CAD model to clean up the drawing at the push of a button. And this is really cool to see in action because you can literally highlight certain aspects and hit purge and they disappear from the model, but you can bring them right back. So that was my research interview with Mr. Fagan. Now, other parts of research, I used research articles. So I found 3 research articles that related to my guiding question, which is how mechanical engineers use CAD software, how it's advanced, and how it should advance in the future. The first article I chose was titled, CAD, Do Computers Aid the Design Process? So this one talks about how CAD is used and the basics of CAD. So in order to start this project, I wanted a basis of what CAD is and how it can be used. The second article I chose was titled, CAD Usage in an Architectural Office, From Observations to Active Assistance. So this article, I wanted to get a baseline of how engineers use CAD every day. So the last article gave me what it is. This one gives me how it's used. So this one allowed me to see how CAD is used. The third and final article I chose was titled Computer-Aided Design, Past, Present, and Future. So this one really helped me find the answer to my given question because it shows how CAD has advanced in the past, what it looks like in the present, and how it may advance in the future. It gave me tips on what it looked like and how it could advance. And then finally, the conclusion. What did I learn at the end of all of this? So throughout this mentorship, I learned a great deal about working as an engineer, what engineers do on an everyday basis, and I learned also, since my mentor is the owner of the business, I learned about what some of the basics of owning a business, working in the workplace, and things like that. So I learned a ton about both engineering and also soft skills. And then throughout the internship and the research, I've learned how CAD might advance in the future. So it's gone all the way from hand drawing to very primitive and basic CAD softwares to the super advanced softwares that we have today. And just like any computer program, we can assume it's going to go even further. While it's impossible to predict the future, we can assume that things will get easier, more streamlined, there will be less of a learning curve to learn the software, and also the importation of those VR headsets would be really cool to see. So I hope you've learned a little bit about what my mentorship is and also all about CAD software. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you guys.